I'm the MP for Cheltenham and a member of the Liberal Democrat Parliamentary Party from 2006 until 2010. I was a Shadow Junior Minister for the Environment, and from 2007 served on the House of Commons Environmental Audit Committee. Javelin Park site isn't within my Cheltenham constituency, but the issue of the incinerator is one that's causing my constituents huge concern. I've been contacted about and been lobbied against this proposal by local academics, councillors, voluntary organisations such as Gloucestershire CPRE, and by many private individuals, as well as by the Cabinet Member of Cheltenham Borough Council with responsibility for sustainability. I have not, to my knowledge, yet been contacted by a single person in support of the incinerator proposal. The submission I've made to the inquiry represents a strong objection to the appeal. It focuses on just two aspects of the inquiry's deliberations, namely the completely inappropriate visual impact of this application in a highly sensitive landscape, and the clear direction of national and local policy towards the reduction of residual waste, which undermines the need for this incinerator. I look forward to discussing these points with the inquiry. Let me deal first with the landscape and visual impact of this proposal. The proximity of this site to and its clear visibility from the Cotswolds area of outstanding natural beauty makes it comparable to the site rejected for wind turbines by Inspector Richard Thomas on the 28th of November 2012. In this decision, Mr Thomas describes the relationship between the AONB, the Severn Vale and the Cotswold Way, which is as close to the Javelin Park site as to the one he considered. He said, and I quote, "There would also be a significant visual impact on views out of the AONB from the Cotswold Way National Trail, which passes along the crest of much of the escarpment. This elevated route provides walkers with a vast panorama of the Severn Vale that stretches from the two Severn bridges in the south, across the estuary to the Forest of Dean, the Malvern Hills and northwards towards the hinges of Gloucester. The dramatic sweeping view highlights the partially developed nature of the vale, with the predominant character being its rural texture of fields and hedgerows. I would say that compared to the relatively graceful and unobtrusive wind turbines rejected in this earlier appeal, the solid angular profile of the proposed incinerator would present a massive and jarring image in this sweeping natural landscape. By contrast, Gloucestershire Gateway Trust, promoters of the approved development of the new motorway service station only a couple of miles away on the M5, clearly went to enormous lengths to landscape their whole development sympathetically, with gently curved design, timber construction, turf roof, and deliberately minimal visual impact on the rest of the Vale landscape. This is much more the quality and scale of design expected of large projects in this sensitive landscape. At 48.5 metres high, the excessive height of the proposed buildings compared to the existing site limit for buildings of 15.7 metres has been graphically referred to in other evidence, and I share the concern of all those other objectors. Next, I will turn to the need for this incinerator in the context of national policy and the Gloucestershire Waste Core strategy. Incineration is clearly a residual waste technology. It falls below waste prevention, reuse and recycling in the waste hierarchy, and so will be increasingly vulnerable over time to political drives to reduce the amount of material going into the waste stream in the first place. This is now clearly understood to be the most environmentally friendly and sustainable approach. This is clearly demonstrated in the coalition government's commitment to work towards a zero waste economy, and our waste reduction plans, which I attached as an annex to my submission. The coalition programme and the government's waste reduction plans include commitments and strategies to do a number of things, including preventing food waste, including working with businesses in the food and drink sector, promoting a stronger market for recycled materials, making businesses more responsible for what they produce, including packaging, further improving recycling and waste collection from households, helping businesses reduce and manage waste. The government's headline commitment on energy from waste is particularly instructive. This is from the DEFRA website, which is within www.gov.uk. It says that we're working to increase the use of anaerobic digestion, which is the process of creating biogas from organic waste. Incineration isn't mentioned. It is perceived as a less clean, less sustainable policy option, even than other forms of energy from waste, and its economic viability will be increasingly undermined by concerted efforts to reduce the amount of residual waste available for incineration altogether. Politically motivated councils, supported by well-motivated citizens, can achieve spectacular and unexpected reductions in residual waste. Cheltenham Borough Council hit a record 50% recycling of municipal solid waste in 2012, up from just 35% the previous year after the introduction of new recycling measures. Liverpool City Council raised recycling levels of municipal solid waste from 5% to 30% in 3 years when it was under Lib Dem control. The Gloucestershire Waste Core strategy also reflects this approach in its main aim, which is, quote, reducing the amount of waste we produce and reusing more of our waste. Reuse, recycling or composting are clearly prioritised over the disposal of residual waste. The incinerator does not serve this aim and is arguably likely to undermine it by maintaining a market for residual waste even when it would naturally have fallen lower. The incinerator would create a perverse incentive to maintain levels of residual waste at 190,000 tonnes or more to fulfil the terms of its contract. Yet as other evidence to this inquiry shows, less than 140,000 tonnes of Gloucestershire's annual waste is actually suitable for incineration at the current recycling rate of 48%. If recycling rises to 60%, this volume would fall to less than 110,000 tonnes per annum, and at a 70% recycling rate it would fall to less than 80,000 tonnes. Other evidence to this inquiry shows how the Gloucestershire Waste Disposal Authority has consistently overestimated the amount of residual waste, predicting municipal solid waste arisings would increase by 3.1% between 2010 and 2013, when in fact they fell by nearly 5%. The Waste Disposal Authority continues to predict a gradual rise in municipal solid waste, despite all the policy direction at both national and local level being in the opposite direction. Commercial and industrial waste may be required to fill the gap and feed the machine, but as other evidence again suggests, commercial and industrial waste is very sensitive to price signals. Government incentives to reduce packaging and designed-in waste, combined with a growing global economy driving up prices for dry recyclables such as steel and plastic, could yet again undermine the viability of incineration. And for the best of reasons, as economics drives global and local industry to be more resource efficient and cost effective. The likely result of this disconnect between the widespread but in my view completely misguided perception amongst some officers and councillors that incineration is the most cost effective path to follow, and the clear policy drivers which are taking waste management in a different direction, is over-provision of residual waste treatment capacity. Other evidence to this inquiry suggests this is already happening, with around 3.5 million tonnes per annum of already permitted residual waste treatment capacity in the southwest of England, but only 2.2 million tonnes of residual waste being actually produced in this region. I entirely endorse the conclusions of Alan Watson and of Gloucester that the resulting challenge will not be how to dispose of our residual waste, but where to find enough waste to feed the machines. The temptation to incinerate otherwise reusable or recyclable waste will be strong, but would run entirely counter to both national and local policy. So in summary, I would like to strongly object to this appeal on the grounds of visual impact inappropriate to the landscape, and on the basis that the need for the incinerator is unproven in the context and likely future direction of both local and national policy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Phillips not amongst us?
He's not, sir.
Have you got any questions?
No, thank you, sir.
Okay. I've just got one point of clarification, if I may, please. In the Waste Management Plan of England, which was published on the 12th of December of last year, it says this in terms of, it's on page 32, it's under technologies for managing residual waste. I won't read the whole code, but it says the government does not express a preference for one technology over another. A previous section deals with the government's preference for anaerobic digestion, so it's talking about other recovery facilities. And as I say, it says the government does not express a preference for one technology over another. In your statement on page 3, in the paragraph under the bullet points, you say incineration is perceived as a less clean, less sustainable policy option, even than other forms of energy from waste and its economic viability. So could you just clarify that? That's your personal opinion, obviously not government policy?
It clearly is my personal opinion, and there are other forms of energy from waste which have the potential to be brought forward which are not yet economic. Gas plasma, which is almost vaporisation rather than incineration, produces much less toxic waste than incineration and produces an inert, almost glass-like substance as the main waste product, which can then be used in road building and things like this. So there are new technologies coming forward which are clearly more environmentally friendly than incineration. But I suppose I was really thinking of the waste hierarchy in terms of I think it's the Waste England and Wales Regulations 2011, which brings the waste hierarchy from the European Directive into UK law, where other recovery underneath recycling includes anaerobic digestion, which through biogas is an energy source as well. So I was regarding anaerobic digestion as the principal other means of energy from waste, which I was referring to, and that clearly is a preferred option, which is set out in government policy.
Thank you for that clarification.
I mean, if I could just add briefly, I think certainly this may not be government policy, but it was certainly something that we considered when drafting Liberal Democrat policy. I'm sure it would be the policy that might emerge through other parties as well, that we have to start to distinguish in a waste hierarchy between good energy from waste and less good energy from waste, and that's the clear direction of travel, is to distinguish more in the environmental impacts of different technologies.
Future government policy.
Yes. Provided people are voting Liberal Democrat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.